What's going on, y'all? So I just had to come out and run a quick errand, try to get over a cold, and then I get right back into the studio. But I just wanted to talk about a video or a couple of videos that I put up about the Roland Fantom, in which I talked about what I deemed to be an issue with its polyphony. And like I said in the videos, the Roland Fantom is my main keyboard. I use it, live, use it in the studio. I'm not really a YouTuber. People may think that companies are sending me gear and I'm reviewing them. That's not the case. I go out and buy gear like everybody else. I'm a musician. I make sync music. I produce sync music. I do live gigs. I play for a church. I make a living playing instruments or playing a keyboard and produce music. And this is why I'm really voicing my concern. I think that our keyboard manufacturers can give us more. They can give us more for our money. I just believe that the technology is out there where at least the research and development would not be as expensive as it was years and years ago. You don't even have to have the latest and greatest cutting edge technology to drastically improve how our hardware keyboards actually perform. And as I've really gotten into sync music, and I'll be making more videos and stuff on it, as I've really gotten into just studio work in general, not sync music specifically, but just studio work in general, and started using more VSTs and using a DAW and stuff. And especially even when I bought the Akai MPC 1 years ago, I saw just how far behind our keyboard manufacturers are in so many different ways. And I think that the polyphony issue is not even a discussion that we should be having when it comes to $4,000 keyboards. Just flagship stuff. I just don't think that that's a conversation that we should even have to have. So let me get off of Roland real quick, switch to another company, a completely different product, and then I'll come back and make my point. So in 2019, Apple released a product, the MacBook Pro. The 2019 MacBook Pro had an i9 processor, a bunch of fast this, that, and the other, and it was a beast of a machine on paper. What people quickly realized was that they were having all kinds of throttling issues, thermal throttling issues with that MacBook. And basically what would happen is the performance would go way down, and because the computer had to protect itself from overheating, and so the performance would be cut, fans and stuff would kick on. It was just a big mess. So people who worked with 3D models, people who worked with 4K video, lots of effects and stuff like that, they were experiencing thermal throttling. It was a big issue. And all these Mac supporters, YouTubers, all kinds of people, they started coming out and talking about the thermal throttling issues, and you shouldn't buy it, and so on and so forth. And long story short, Apple fixed the problem. At least in their next models, they actually fixed the problem. They made the MacBook Pros. I got a new MacBook Pro. They made them thicker and stuff like that, and they don't have the same thermal throttling issues. Of course, they're on the new M1, M2 chips. They're more efficient. It doesn't produce as much heat, and so on and so forth. But the problem got fixed. But even with the 2019 MacBooks, they release various software updates and stuff like that to try to help with the issue. What they did not do was blame the users. That's what Apple didn't do. Apple didn't say, well, maybe you're using too many effects at one time. Maybe you've got too many windows in your browser open at the same time. Maybe you're overloading the system. Your 3D systems, your 3D models have too many polygons. Reduce the polygons and you won't have that issue. Reduce the resolution, and all these different workarounds that you have to implement in order to get it to work as advertised. Just do that. There's something wrong with you, the user. You're doing it wrong. You're not using it right. You don't understand how our product works. You don't understand our software and our hardware. You don't understand all the inner workings, and that's why you're having an issue. And if you understood what you were working with, you wouldn't have that issue. That was not their response. Their response was to fix it. And they have to, because they've got competition. Apple is not the only game in town. All right, they're PC users. But MSI is going to come out with keyboards. Going to come out with computers. Alienware is going to have computers. HP is going to have computers. Dell is going to have computers. And so on and so forth. So they had to fix it, because it's either fix it or get left in the dust. That's how that industry works. Fix it or get left in the dust. People will leave you, stop spending their money. And people feel like, hey, for a $4,000, a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, or $6,000 laptop, we should be getting better performance than this. It shouldn't be thermal throttling. Explaining why it's thermal throttling is not good enough. Let's go back to Roland. The response that I believe we need to get from Roland is to fix it. Maybe they can't fix it in this model, but when you come out with your next flagship keyboard, this issue should be addressed and it should be fixed. Now, I understand that all keyboards are going to have a limit. Every computer has a limit. You can use VSTs. Hey, if you got 200 tracks going on with massive processing on every single track, you can have issues. But you would have to really work to get there, right? It's hard to max out even an old one. It's hard to max it out. You've got to really work to get there. And when you see people doing tests and stuff online, they're adding a bunch of effects and duplicating a bunch of tracks and doing all kinds of stuff in order to get the DAWs and stuff to crash. They're not actually making the music they would normally make. They're just trying to get it to crash. They're stress testing it. I wasn't doing a stress test in my videos of the Roland Fantom. I layered an acoustic piano sound, like a supernatural acoustic piano sound, along with the RD1000 sound. Now, the RD1000 sound was in my Roland XV3080 23 years ago. Over 20 years ago, same multi-sample. So, one thing we're doing is we're recycling sounds from decades ago. All of them. Not just some classic ones, but all of them. Like most of the Zencore's sound engine is just old sounds from old boards, right? And old modules and stuff like that. So, this particular multi-sample has to be very, very small in size, because it was in so many keyboards before it. They didn't have the massive space like we have and stuff now. Now, understand the processors and stuff that is going through, and the DSP and different things like that. All those things affect the polyphony as well. So I get that. But to me, that's a poor design. You have your filters and stuff screwing up your polyphony, right? And then I just had a 2 oscillator soft pad. Now, the soft pad is capable of having at least 4 oscillators. I'm using one with only 2 oscillators. So this is by no means any kind of a crazy stress test. I didn't have any crazy effects and stuff on stuff. Just layered 3 basic sounds and had all kinds of issues. I had less of a response from the Roland community on the second video that I did when I compared it to the Yamaha Montage. And the Yamaha Montage had no issues. And I didn't have to sacrifice, scene remain or do any kind of workarounds or anything. I layered the most polyphony intensive piano in the unit. I layered that over an electric piano that had multiple oscillators and a pad that had multiple oscillators and had 0 issues whatsoever. No workarounds, didn't have to pick a different kind of piano, anything. And that's only 128 voice polyphony, stereo polyphony, but 128 voice polyphony, and it was able to handle the same exact MIDI file with no problems. And I'm not a big fan, again, of the Montage's polyphony. 128. How long have we had 128 polyphony on our keyboards? How many decades at this point have we had 128 voice polyphony on our keyboards. So it's not that I don't understand the keyboards or understand that, the filters affect stuff and, certain, that's why it says up to 256 voice polyphony in the Zen Core sound engine for the Roland Fantom, because there's a multiplicity of things that can affect it. But I think it needs to be fixed. We are in a time where technology is advanced enough that polyphony should not be something that we're discussing. I can understand if it was some sort of a stress test and I was layering as many, 16 sounds, and I had all sorts of moving soundscapes and the most this and that and all kinds of opening and closing filters all over the place. Then I could see, okay, yeah, it's choking because you're stress testing it. You're seeing what the limits are. But this is 3 basic sounds: a piano, electric piano, and a pad. And people use that all the time and play it on all kinds of instruments and don't have any kind of a polyphony issue. Especially, we're talking about a flagship that costs as much money as the Roland Fantom. And then the response is, well, they can't. They're giving us the best they can. I don't think that they are giving us the best they can. Because people say, well, you can't compare software to hardware. It's, you can't compare, computers to hardware. You just can't do it. And for the most part, I agree. But I'm not expecting it to be as powerful as my M1 Max chip in my Mac Studio with 32 gigs of RAM, and I'm not expecting a 10-core CPU. That's not what I'm expecting, right? PreSonus has the Studio Live Series 3 32SX. I have it, 32SX digital mixer. That mixer is capable of 286 processes simultaneously. In other words, you can have a high-pass filter, an EQ, compression, gate, whatever, on one channel. And it will process all of those at the same time with near zero latency. Somebody could be singing on stage, have a mic plugged in, that analog signal will come into the mixer, it will be converted to a digital signal, it will run through layers of processing, and then it will go out the various outputs and stuff like that, and it will do it instantly. And it can have 286 different processes happening at the same time. In other words, it doesn't matter which compression models I use, what combination I put them in, it's able to handle all the DSP processing. That mixer has only a dual core processor. Now, the processor inside of my M1 has 10 cores. The processor inside of my M2 MacBook Pro has 12 cores. We're talking about something with 2 cores, an old dual core processor that is able to handle all of that DSP. It has no fans inside, so whatever they're using requires no fans. It's got some ventilation in the back, but no fans. I was able to leave it on and never shut it off. At a conference where I was running sound, doing front of house and the in-ear monitor mix and all that stuff, I was able to leave it on for 3 days and never shut it off. We had like 8 vocal mics and a bunch of mics on the drums, and there's lots of DSP processing happening all at the same time. No issues with the dual core processor. No fans or anything like that inside of the unit. It's not just software. It's got a touch screen. It's got hardware because it has motorized faders and stuff like that. It's got a metal chassis, just like a keyboard. It has hardware, but the processor inside is just more advanced. And the bottom line is, it could perform as advertised with no workarounds, right? And PreSonus, when I bought the unit, not now because they were bought out by Fender, but PreSonus at the time when I bought the unit was doing about 1/4 the revenue of Roland. 1/4 the revenue of Roland. This PreSonus wasn't as big as Roland, and yet they have a unit that works as advertised. That is obviously processing all kinds of stuff through digital converters and analog signals and stuff coming in, recording stuff to an SSD and stuff all at the same time. I know it's not an apples to apples comparison, but what I'm saying is there's a company putting old dual core processors in their unit, and it's seemingly more powerful than the processors we're getting out of Roland, which is way bigger than the company. So I think that Roland can give us better, especially for our money. And they should be able to give it to us Polyphony. I'm not talking about, I want a better UI. Okay, may not be a good UI to me, but it'd be a great UI to somebody else. I'm not talking about, hey, the sequencer should be better. Some people love the sequencer and use the sequencer, no problem. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about a basic feature, Polyphony. And Polyphony can be the bottleneck for all the power in your keyboard. It doesn't matter how great your filters are. If when we start layering a couple of sounds together, we can't get sound. It doesn't matter. I played the video for some people that don't know anything about music, right? And I've done some tests with these people, and I can play a Nord piano, I can play a Yamaha piano, and I can play a Roland piano. And when they hear the sound, they can't tell the difference in those three keyboards. To me, they sound drastically different. But to these people, they can't tell the difference. When I played the Roland with the notes cutting out, they knew something was wrong. They said, it sounds like everything is like shorter or something's wrong. It doesn't sound right. They could tell that something was actually wrong. And these are not keyboard players or engineers or anything. Again, they can't tell the difference between a Nord and a Korg and a Roland and a Yamaha. They could not tell the difference. Some of them had more reverb than others, and they were just like, no, they all sound like pianos to me. So, but they could tell when those notes were cutting out, they could hear it. So if they could hear it, an audience would be able to hear it. This is a basic feature, I think, that needs to be fixed. We need better processors so that we can get better polyphony, so that the keyboards can actually perform as advertised. There's no reason to be talking about you can layer and split 16 sounds all together in a whole bunch of multiplicity of different ways. When in practice, it's going to be really tough to do because you're going to actually run out of polyphony or processor power or something along the way. And this is a workstation. I know some people are like, no, it's really a synthesizer. And I've had that debate, and I used to be on the synthesizer team. So I reached out to Roland, and Roland said, no, it's a workstation. And Ed Diaz, who works for Roland, shout out to him, great guy. He said, it is a workstation. So as a workstation, you should be able to layer sounds together, at least 3 basic sounds, and play it as a piano with no problems. That's how I feel about what a flagship should be. But you can let me know what you think. This is not one of my real videos, just one of my videos in the car. And I got to go in here into the store and get what I need to get. And then I got to get back in the studio because I'm making another video on the MPC key and showing how I use it live. But yeah, I just want to talk about that because it wasn't really all that well received in the Roland community. But that's okay. It's okay to voice concerns about a keyboard because hopefully, because I really like hardware. But the way some of this hardware is performing is making me move more and more to software every single day. But anyway, that's it. You can let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next real video.